All right, welcome to a very short, informative video about adjustment layers. So we're going to open up a file and look at what adjustment layers do and how you can use them in a local way and also a global way. So I'm just opening a JPEG, any old, oh, all right, it's Walter.
Aww.
I don't know how that happened. Let's reset our window.
What's wrong with the photo? It's like the end is like.
Oh, it's a
Tree.
palm tree.
Okay.
Palm tree. So let's put this here. Okay, so we have our adjustments. I'm going to pull that out. One of the nice things about, and actually I'm going to pull the layers back out too. One of the nice things about adjustments and adjustment layers is that it makes exactly what they're called, which is another layer. So if I want to adjust the levels, I can pull up the levels and it will allow me to adjust the white values, the highlights, the midtone values, the shadows, and the black. Just open it up a little bit, right? And what this does is makes a new layer. And I'm going to show you how people used to do it, just in case that you're working, maybe you took it in high school and you're still working in kind of the same way, and there's a way better way to do them with adjustment layers. So what people will often do is go to Image, and they'll use these autos, which is kind of the worst thing you can do, because now that's stuck, and you can't take that off, right? And part of having a non-destructive workflow is being able to change your mind. Another thing that people will do is go to Image, Adjustments, and they will say make it black and white here. Now that image is black and white. It's still an RGB file, right? Meaning it still has 4 channels of color information, but that image is now black and white. So if you wanted part of it to be in color, if you wanted to adjust the black and white values, you can't do that anymore. That's stuck. And that's how it used to be done. But we don't do that. How we do is play with lots of adjustment layers. So your first row here, you have ones that are going to increase the contrast and density. And if you're a photographer working in a darkroom, you would think about density as the lightness or darkness of a photograph, and a contrast as the difference between the lightness and darkness. So in this case, I just added this levels layer. I could also have added a curves layer. Let me show you what's so cool about curves. First of all, on the levels layer, you have just those 3 dots. Now, I might look at an image and say, well, I know this isn't right, but I don't know exactly how to twist and turn this. And you kind of make a mess. Let's reset it to default. This little guy right here is the winner, right? Select this little scrubby hand. And if you know what part of the image you want to adjust, but you don't know how to place a point on the histogram, just drag over and it will make those adjustments for you. So I can make that lighter, I could make this more contrast, I could so it puts the points directly on the luminosity value that you've selected by putting the hand over. If you don't like it, you can always just go back to default and it will reset it for you. That's one of the things I really love about the curves as opposed to levels. I'm not too, I don't use exposure or vibrance that much or brightness, contrast. I think that these are the 2 most powerful as far as dealing with contrast. And then the next one you've got hue, saturation, color balance, black and white, photo filter, channel mixer, and then color lookup. And then the ones that are more special effect, like on the bottom, like invert, threshold, things like that. Okay, gradient map. However, I do love myself a good gradient map because it allows me to do photographic toning. So if I click here, I can use any of these that I choose to put a really nice tone on it. So say I pick something like that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go a little more extreme. That looks pretty good, and hit OK. But I don't like the way it looks on the background. I just want it on Walter. You can edit this because every adjustment layer comes with a layer mask. And when you edit this layer mask, it changes this adjustment layer from being global, which means it's affecting everything below it, to local, where it's just affecting some things. So you grab the brush, black and white, and with black in the foreground, you could say, all right, bring all of Walter's natural color back in. Okay, let's make the brush a little bigger. So now you'll see over here in the layer mask thumbnail that what's black is not showing the gradient map. The black is hiding and the white is revealing. So if I went back in and I double click here, it will bring up this dialog window and I could choose anything else. And it's not going to affect him. You can also blend. If I wanted to blend it in, I could change the brush opacity. And you can see how you could, with a little bit of work and a soft brush, you could make different kinds of effects by changing the opacity of the brush. The shortcut for changing the opacity of the brush is with the brush, bless you, selected, hitting any of the numerical numbers. So if I hit 9, it changes to 90. If I hit 3, it changes to 30. If I hit 50, like 77, changes to 77. So that's the shortcut, so you don't have to go up here and keep changing the opacity of the brush. Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to like invert a selection on a layer mask? Like if you erase something and you're like, oh, I'd rather it be inverse instead of having to undo it and then erase the outside, is there a way to just select it and switch it?
Let's see. Let me go, I'm going to get rid of this and make a new one real quick to make sure I understand your question. So I don't want that. Okay. So let's go back over. Did I get rid of my adjustments? I did. There we go. And let's do something kind of extreme though, like the gradient map. And I go in and I pull Walter out, but I need to make sure my brush is at 100%. There we go. Now, if you want to select exactly the opposite.
Yeah, if you want to make him the color gradient in the background, not.
Command I to invert the mask.
Yay.
And let me show you where you find it. That's a great question. If you click here to select this thumbnail, you double click. Where is that? Sorry, nothing, seems like everything's gone away. You can go over here to this mask. I'm sorry, select this one. If you want to change the gradient map, select the first thumbnail. If you want to change the mask, select the second thumbnail, which is the mask thumbnail. And you can invert it right here. You can also feather it. You can also change the density of the mask. And you can go into mask edges and work with all of the options that are in here that we're going to get to with the next assignment. Okay? So you can also continue to refine it using color range. So this is pretty cool. You don't have to do any other work than just hit invert or the shortcuts Command I. If you want to go back in from here and you're like, well, I don't like that blue gradient map, click on this first thumbnail, and then you can go in and pick another one. So that's how you can make some things global and local. So if you're retouching the sailor and you just want the sky to be blue, you could paint it blue, or you could put an adjustment layer on it that was blue, and then just mask out the bottom. Right? So that's why adjustment layers are so cool. Often, if I'm shooting people, particularly photographing people, I'll have color shifts on their face where they may be yellow on one side and blue on the other. So I have to mask the one side, correct one side, mask the other, and then correct the other side, and then mask the other side. So that a lot of times when you're editing photographs, when we get to our photographic assignment, you'll see this. In particular, you are using these layer masks for everything. Okay? So you want to add them here, your adjustment layers. You've got your mask panel, and if you ever want to change your mind to get back into that interface, just select that first thumbnail, and that brings up the actual tool. Okay. Any other questions about how to save those or how to do any work with those or why they're better? Right? It requires you to save the files with PSD because it has layers, which you absolutely would anyway. But yeah, this is a really great thing. Oh, let me show you one more thing. Let's go back to Walter. And say you make a selection. I'm going to hold down the shift and try and get his little ear. Hold on the minus. Okay, so say I start from a selection. You can have a selection first and then go to a layer mask. Let's pick threshold. And then it will automatically mask it for you from that selection. Because I'm kind of crazy. right? So you can also start from a selection as opposed to painting it in if you wanted it to be a much more precise selection. Okay, and then if you're like, hey, I don't really like those edges on that, what you can do is go to this thumbnail, mask edges, and you can pull up. I like to use the Smart Radius and just smooth out the edges a little bit. It's kind of not great. I'm going to shift the edge in a little bit.
His eyes look swollen.
It's like something
He's
you
seeing
buy.
things.
Yeah, it's a.
He's seeing a lot of things.
He's singing to forever.
Yes, you've seen a lot. So you can play with the edges this way to refine it, or what you can do is also just grab that brush and right in there, zoom in, and kind of refine it a little bit so that it doesn't, right, because it just picked up a little bit of his outline. And then you could edit that once you start from a selection. So it's up to you how you want to start. You can start from a selection, you don't have to, but this is how you use adjustment layers in a global and local way. Cool? All right.